glad you're here, yeah. At all of our locations right now here in the room in Newark, everyone at our online location, you're logged in from somewhere around our region or maybe somewhere else in the world, glad you're here. And then to our church family at Hockessin, Newark, will you help me show some love to everybody? Yeah. And whether you are a dad or have a dad or like me, have lost a dad and today's maybe a little bit bittersweet or tough for you, we want to honor all of our fathers today. And I especially want to take a moment and honor my father-in-law, Roger. He is a part of our church family, and he's not always able to get here in person because he's had some health problems, but I love him so much. Just want, Roger, you to know that you are like a second dad to me. And I wanted to say thank you for allowing me to marry your daughter with no money and not much of a plan. So, yeah. So I remember the day that I asked my father-in-law for his daughter's hand in marriage. And he gave me the opportunity to elope. He said, I'll give you some money if you elope. And I said, well, will you throw in your car? He said, no deal. And then, we got serious, and he said, well, how are you going to take care of her? And I said, well, we are not going to be rich, but I promise you I will take good care of your daughter. And 25 years later, I think at least 80% of the time I am doing what I promised to do. Hopefully I'm doing okay. So, happy Father's Day. Well, it's week 3 of a series that we've been in called Undaunted. And if you're joining us for the first time at any of our locations, a big welcome to you. Hope you're having a great experience so far, and very glad that you're here. We've been talking about living your life boldly. And if you are new today and you want to kind of get caught up on the series, you can watch the first 2 installments of this series on our YouTube channel. You can get kind of caught up to speed. And we're looking at the lives of some people in the Bible who lived life with confidence and courage and boldness. And we're talking about what it could look like for us to live bold lives, courageous lives. And we have this image many times in our minds when we think about being bold or strong or courageous, confident, whatever it is. We think that means doing things on our own, right? It's kind of the image that comes to mind, the courageous person standing alone against the odds. And as a result, sometimes we have a hard time asking for help. I struggle with that. I don't know how many of us today deal with this, but I'm getting better because I've realized there's so many areas in my life I need help, But I struggle with it. I don't like asking for help with directions. I don't like asking for help with lifting things or finding things or basically anything. I would prefer to be able to do it on my own. And I wonder how many of us today, just all of our locations, just show of hands if you're in the room or if you're online, just let us know. Put a hand raise emoji in the comments. How many of you struggle with asking for help? How many of you? How many of us specifically, men, how many men you struggle with asking for help? How many men struggle with it? Okay? If you're sitting next to someone who struggles asking for help and they didn't lift their hand, just reach over and help them, okay? They're not going to ask, so you're going to have to just assume you need help, man. I'm going to help you out. And it is true sometimes that being bold and confident and courageous does mean choosing a path that nobody else seems to want to take in a relationship maybe, or with our finances. We have to kind of go against the current and against the crowd and against what's normal and common. Maybe with our health, we have to stand alone, at least for a season. How committed we're going to be in our faith. You can't delegate your faith out. If you're married, you can't be like, well, my wife loves God. That should be good enough for me. Actually, it doesn't work that way. Got to make a choice on our own. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to dial in to getting close to God, exploring what that looks like, taking steps to grow in my faith. There's some stuff that ultimately nobody can do for us. We have to be willing to stand alone. So then the tension arises when we think, well, if I want to live an undaunted life, and again, the definition of that word is a life not intimidated or discouraged by difficulty, danger, or disappointment. If I want to live that way, confidently, courageously, how do I know when I need to stand alone, and how do I know when I need a little help? So I'm glad you asked, or I'm glad I asked for you, okay? Because you needed help. You weren't going to ask, so I'm asking for you. So here we go. Ready? Long, long ago, in a land far, far away, there lived a man by the name of Moses. So all throughout this series, we've been looking at these, what seem like larger than life characters in the Bible who lived confidently and courageously. And Moses is the one we're going to look at today. So Moses was the leader of the Israelites, who were a people group who had been slaves in the nation of Egypt actually for a long time, for over 400 years, and then they were rescued by the power of God. You can read about this in the book of Exodus, in the Old Testament of the Bible, or you can watch Prince of Egypt. Those are two options. I recommend actually both. The Bible is the more accurate account, but Prince of Egypt is pretty cool. And you can read about this amazing, amazing account. And Moses leads the people to this new promised land. And it is Prince of Egypt, right? Is that the right one? Okay, good. I want to make sure I got the right one. Moses leads the people of Israel out of Egypt, and he's leading them toward a land that God has promised them. So God has made this promise, and you have to understand this promise was made centuries before. I'm going to give you this land. I'm going to give you this place. It's going to be your own place. I'm going to take care of you. You are going to be my people. But on the way to the promised land, they have to travel through the wilderness. There's a journey, there's a path through a desert place, and it's the in-between. How many of you have experienced the in-between? You're between where you are now and where you believe that you can be, your destiny, your future, maybe what you believe God has for you. There's often a journey and there's a path in between. As we think about Juneteenth, this is the story of Moses that many enslaved African Americans looked to for hope as they prayed for their own freedom. They were enslaved, but they believed that a day would come when they could be free. It's a powerful, powerful account. And at one point, Moses leads the Israelites to a place called Rephidim. And it's a place where they've been on their journey for, at this point, only just a few weeks. It will end up being 40 years. They don't know that yet. Sometimes we don't know how long it's going to take. And at Rephidim, the people start crying out to Moses for water. They're thirsty. They're in a wilderness place. They have no source of fresh water. And so Moses asks God for help. He knows, man, I don't know how to answer these people's needs. I don't know how to do this thing. So he goes to God, and God tells Moses to hit a large rock with his staff, which is a wooden stick that Moses has had with him for many, many years. He brought it with him from a previous life, so to speak, when he was a shepherd. Before he was a great leader of the people of Israel, he was just a shepherd in the desert himself, but he had this stick, this staff, and God says, I want you to strike the rock with the staff. And when Moses does that, water comes gushing out. It's a miracle. God provides in a place where it seems like there's no solution. And it's an amazing moment, but here's what happens next. While the people of Israel were still at Rephidim, the warriors of Amalek attacked them. So imagine this, how disorienting this moment is. The people have been thirsty. They've cried out to Moses. Moses had gone to God, asked for help. So the people asked Moses for help. Moses is like, I'm going to need a higher power beyond me. He goes to God, asks for help. God provides water. It's a miracle. And while they're still drinking this water and enjoying this moment, a bunch of Amalekites violently descend on them. Now, you may be like, I've never heard of the Amalekites. They were one of many people groups who did not want to see Israel get to the promised land. They wanted to wipe them off the face of the earth. And it's an intense moment. And there are a lot of stories in the Old Testament like this, violent, intense, chaotic, that actually, if we'll look at them through the right lens, prepare us or can prepare us for some of the conflicts we face in this life. And we are fighting not physical enemies. In fact, the New Testament of the Bible is very clear. Since Jesus came, our battle is no longer against flesh and blood. So change your plans for later today. Tough crowd. Okay, so our battle is, you're like, I was going to beat somebody up. Not anymore. Jesus said, forgive your enemies, do good to those who persecute you, turn the other cheek when it comes to our physical enemies, but we are very much engaged in some battles we cannot see. And this is very important. If you're new to your faith, if you're trying to explore what it looks like to follow Jesus, you're taking those first few steps, you need to know you are going to run into some battles along the way that you can't see with your eyes. And you might think it's a person, you might think it's a physical battle, and it might be at some level, but another level is this spiritual conflict we're involved in. And in those moments when we're fighting a battle we can't see and we can't win on our own, we need help. So I want to tell you, as a church family, community of faith, we are fighting battles. But we're not fighting against each other or other churches or other religions. We're fighting against oppressive forces that want to keep people down in our region. We're very passionate about this, and we're not weird about it. But we just understand, man, we are fighting against hunger and homelessness and addiction and poverty and loneliness and spiritual lostness, which is people's greatest need, and despair and the things that are holding people down. One of the ways we do that, here's how we fight. Now, since Jesus came, he showed us a new way to fight. We don't fight with weapons. We don't fight with our fists. We don't fight with our physical strength. Instead, what we do is we love people who are underserved and overlooked, and we come alongside them and we help them. And that's how, by lifting up the people Jesus died for, we press down the enemy who's fighting against them. Yeah. And one of the ways we're going to do that together in just a few weeks, we call it Love Week. And all year long, we serve people in need. Every week, we're helping people who are hungry and serving. And just had an event this weekend for our special needs population in this community. And we're just serving people, serving families, no strings attached, loving people. But once a year for a week, we all do it together. And we roll up our sleeves, become the hands and feet of Jesus, serving those who feel like they have no voice and no hope. And I'm just telling you, you were made to fight. And if you don't find something worth fighting for, you will fight for something not worth fighting for. Some of you wonder why you're so irritable. It's because you have energy that you have not pointed in the right direction. Now, that went like this. But the person who came with you made a note to have a conversation later. Like, Pastor said, what do you think of that? Well, I don't like it. Well, that's kind of what we're talking about. You were made to fight. I was made to fight. It was put in us. We just choose the wrong enemies. And when we understand that we were created by God to fight, by serving the people Jesus died for, by giving our lives away and helping other people, then we start to walk in our purpose. And by the way, if you're here, you've been coming maybe for a few weeks or months, you're not serving on the J team yet, come to Plugged In and we'll help you find a way to use your gifts to serve people, because people are worth fighting for. We believe that as a church. People are worth fighting for, and the way we fight is to serve. So the Amalekites attack the Israelites. It's chaos, disorder, everybody's running around. What's going on? Where is God in this moment? And Moses commanded Joshua, choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek for us. Tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill holding the staff of God. So remember that wooden stick. I'm going to hold that in my hand. And when I was a kid, we would pick teams for stuff. Baseball, street hockey, basketball, we'd choose two captains and we'd pick teams. And look at me. I never got picked first, all right? If you're like, oh, shocker. Yes, I never got picked first. Now, I don't remember ever getting picked last because I had passion. I was always like, like ready. What I did not have was size, talent, or any athletic genes whatsoever. But I had passion, so I would get picked like second to last or third to last most of the time. And then sometimes, because I had a big mouth, and so they'd make me captain. I could choose wisely. I couldn't play well, but I could choose wisely. It's kind of my story of success here, to be honest with you. I've chosen really good people to lead alongside me. And yeah, so how many of us, just show of hands, you got picked first in sports? It's okay, humble brag, it's all right. You got picked first. Just be honest, you're the MVP, you've got the trophies. When you were a kid, you rocked the playground, you were just the one who was always like, well, Yep. How many of us, like me, all of our locations, how many of us got picked in the lower 30th percentile? It's just, where are my lower 30th percentile? And it's okay, because now you're a senior VP, and the rest of us are jealous. We're like, yeah, I probably should have. Okay, so Moses tells Joshua, pick your team. I want you to go choose some people, because it's time to fight. And it's a battle worth fighting, so you're going to need help. So go choose a team. Now, Moses is a leader. Joshua is a leader. If you read the story of Moses, actually, he came to a critical moment early on leading the Israelites when he realized, I can't do this on my own. And God actually used his father-in-law. Honored my father-in-law earlier. Moses had a very wise father-in-law who told him, you are exhausted. You're going to burn out. You need to empower some other people to lead with you. And so Moses chose all these other leaders, and Joshua was one of them. But under Joshua, there were leaders, and under those leaders, there were leaders, and under those leaders, there were leaders. And it was a As crazy as it may sound, this group of people in the wilderness, they were well organized. And they understood we need leaders. Did you know we need leaders? We need leaders. Now, I get the response because we're all a little hesitant to go, we need leaders. Why? Because we've been burned. We've seen some leaders over the years. Leaders have gotten a bad rap in general because a few high-profile ones have done some stupid, selfish stuff. And so a lot of us are like, well, I don't know. Might be better off without leaders, just looking at some of the ones we've had. Just in general. And that may apply to religion, politics, whatever sphere. We get a little bit concerned because a few people who are in it for the wrong reasons get the headlines. But the reality is we need leaders. Now, I was telling you, we need leaders. It's just that we need good leaders, not perfect leaders, because they don't exist. Anytime you see someone who seems like a perfect leader, they're just hiding some things well. You actually don't want a perfect leader. You want a leader who goes, I am very much not perfect, but I am in it for the right reasons. And that's the kind of leaders we need. I'm telling you, families need leaders. Did you know that? If you're a dad or a mom, your kid needs you, kid or kids, whether they're little or teenagers, they need you to be a leader. They do not need you to be their buddy. They're with you, so you're nervous, like they're beside you, so like, I'm with you, but I'm scared to death of my 11-year-old, so I'm just not. Yeah, that's a problem. They don't need you. Now, they may say they do. They get all upset when you enforce boundaries and create rules, and I'm just telling you, they need you to be a leader. They just don't know how to express that yet. Now, they don't need you to be a dictator. There's a difference between a leader and a dictator. A leader is in it for the good of the person they're leading. A dictator is in it for their own good. And your kids can tell the difference. But they do need you to be a leader. They don't need you to be absent. They don't need you to be their buddy. They need you to be a leader. Groups need leaders. Churches need leaders. Nations need leaders. We need leaders. And Jesus' model of leadership is this: the greatest leader is the one who leans in and helps other people the most consistently. The real leaders are the ones who go, this isn't about me. I'm not in this for my own bottom line. I'm trying to help other people go further. I'm trying to help other people get where they need to go. That's real leadership. And great leaders know they need help. So if you're a leader on any level, or if you've got kids, or if you've got anybody in your sphere of influence, maybe God's leaning in on you right now saying, I need you to be a leader in some areas. I need you to step up, and to do that, you're gonna have to admit you can't do it on your own. And that's what Moses tells Joshua. He doesn't say, go fight Amalek on your own. He says, choose some people to fight with you. So let me ask you this, whether you consider yourself a leader or not, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, listen, have you chosen some people to fight the battles that count with you? Can you name them off? Have you talked to them in the last 48 hours? And if you have you chosen well? Do you have friends who deepen your character, or friends who act like character isn't important? Or do you have no friends, so you're the only person deciding what your character will become? Do you have people in your life, have you chosen people to do life with who increase your capacity, who stretch your thinking and your faith? Or you just have a lot of people in your life who talk a lot but don't do much that impacts anything that matters? Do you have champions around you or critics? I'm always nervous when I have people in my life who are just very critical, not of me, but of other, because I'm like, if you'll do it about them, you will do it about me one day. And it has proven to be true, just so you know. So do you have champions around you, or do you have people who just have really quick thumbs? This is what I feel, post. Have you chosen well? Some of you are going to go home and take some people out of your social media friend list, and I think that is a gift from God. Full permission. Just be like, sorry, I just don't want to steadily be reminded how bad everybody but you is. So I'm not right with that picture. Have you chosen well? If I'm going to win at the battles that matter in life, I'm going to need some people to fight with me. Not to fight with me, but to fight with me. To come alongside me. Maybe we could build an undaunted life if there were no Amalekites. But the truth is, there are. Life is going to throw some stuff at us. You just need to know, I need to know the Amalekites are going to attack that dream we have and that business we started and that ministry we feel called to, that nonprofit we're passionate about, that career we're attempting to get going, that marriage we are working to save, that friendship we know is worth fighting for, that family we're trying to love, those kids we're trying to raise. The Amalekites are coming. So choose some people to fight with you for what matters, because an undaunted life is built on connected courage. Not isolated arrogance, connected courage. Moses tells Joshua, choose some people and go fight. I'm going to climb this hill, stand at the top, hold the staff of God, that wooden stick that God had used so many times in Moses' past. You know, sometimes God will leave something in your present from your past, not to shame you, but to remind you how far you've come and that you can't do it without him. And so Moses says, Joshua, I'm going to climb this hill. I'm going to hold the staff over you. Now, you might be saying, well, I thought you said Moses was a leader. Why is he sending Joshua to fight and he goes and climbs a hill? Moses is old. Like in his 80s at this point. He can't do a lot against the Amalekites physically. But he knows he still has a part to play. So he climbs another hill and he invests in the next generation. And he stretches out his staff over them, which represents his prayers and his affirmation and his life experiences and his blessing. And it's interesting that he stretches that out over the people. He's basically saying, here's what I've learned about God. He's faithful. You can trust him. You can count on him. I'm going to hold out over you the faithfulness of God. Let me speak to any of us who might feel like maybe our time has passed. Maybe we're in our 40s or 50s or 60s or beyond, and we're thinking, this is Joshua's battle now. No. You know what the students and young people in this church need from you? They need you to stand in a high place and stretch out over them your prayers and your encouragement and your blessing and what you've learned about the faithfulness of God. They don't need you to give up on them. They don't need you to write them off. I've heard some people say, well, you know, this next generation, you never get a right to criticize a generation you haven't fully invested in. Whenever I hear somebody's going, you know, I used to hear it 10 years ago, these millennials. Now it's these Gen Zs. How about we stop criticizing and we start going, I'm stretching out the faithfulness of God over you. I'm believing that the same God was with me is going to be with you. You say, but they're doing it differently than we did. Yeah, we're doing it differently than the generation before us did. Who's doing it differently than the generation before them did. And that's good, because they had like horses and covered wagons. Like it's good that we're doing it differently. Don't get caught up. Man, this is good. I feel good about this. I feel good. I'm giving myself a 7 out of 10 on that one. I feel strong. And you know what? If you're in your teens or your 20s or your 30s, same is true for you. You need to look at the generation that's gone before you and don't write them off. Don't say that they're irrelevant. Receive their blessing. Ask for it. Ask for their help. Ask them, would you pray for me? You've seen some things that God has done in your life, and I need that stretched out over my life. This is what we need to do. We need to be willing to receive those blessings and those instructions and those prayers. From generation to generation. You catching this, everybody? We need to be willing to ask for help. We need to be willing to invest. So Moses tells Joshua, go fight, choose some people. And Joshua did what Moses had commanded and fought the army of Amalek. And meanwhile, Moses, Aaron, and Hur, which was his brother and friend, climbed to the top of a nearby hill. And as long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. It's fun to have an advantage, isn't it? Anybody like having an advantage? You say, well, I don't want to cheat. No, I mean when you have an advantage and everybody knows you have an advantage. It's just fun. An advantage gets you to the front of the line. An advantage gives you a better chance of winning the game. An advantage is when you're reading a book or watching a movie, but you already know how it ends. It's an advantage. Everybody else is kind of on the edge of their seat, and you're like, man, it's interesting, but I think I know how this turns out. God wants you to have the advantage in life. Did you know that? I don't mean that he wants everything to go smoothly for you. That's actually not how you gain the advantage. But God wants you to have the advantage. He does not want you terrified when struggles and obstacles come the same way someone who doesn't have a God is terrified. He wants you to have the advantage. So how do you get the advantage in life? Well, it's very simple. You need a God that you trust, and you need some other people you're connected with, because an undaunted life is built on connected courage. I'm connected to God. I'm connected to a few other people. We gain the advantage when we stop trying to fight the battles that matter alone, and we ask for help. Moses is in his 80s, but he does exactly what he told Joshua to do. It's Joshua's job to go fight physically, Moses' job to climb the hill, but neither of them do it alone. Joshua chooses some people. Moses takes some people with him to climb the hill, because Moses has learned enough along the way to know alone is not good. And sure enough, Moses' arms, remember, he's standing at the top of the hill holding the staff of God over the people, the blessing, the encouragement, the prayers. But his arms soon became so tired, he could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur, the people he intentionally brought with him, found a stone for him to sit on, and then they stood on each side of Moses, holding up his hands, so his hands held steady until sunset. You ever have a spotter at the gym? So this is someone who stands behind you while you're lifting a really heavy weight to make sure you don't hurt yourself. So it's your job to lift the weight, but if something goes wrong, the spotter's there so they can help support the weight. Now, I've never needed one. I've never lifted weights that heavy, but I have needed a lot of spotters in other areas of my life. I look back at some of the stuff I've faced over the years. I've needed some spotters. When the weight of being a husband and a dad felt like too much, I needed some spotters. I needed some people in my life who were like, hey, it's your job to lift it, but we're here supporting you. We're praying for you, encouraging you. If something goes wrong, we're going to remind you of a God you can trust, and you have some people around you can count on. When the weight of trusting God to provide felt like it was too much, I needed some spotters. When the weight of losing my own father felt like too much to bear, I needed some spotters, some friends, some leaders in my life who knew it's my weight to lift, but when my arms got tired, they held up my hands. When my spirit got weary, they steadied me. I needed some spotters. Moses was a great leader, but he was also just a human, and he needed help. Listen to me, so do you. You need help with that addiction you're fighting. You need help with that goal you're pursuing. You need help with that depression you're facing and that resentment you're carrying. You need help with that attitude you're ignoring or that company you're growing. You need help. I don't know everything, but I am smart enough to know I did not get here on my own, and I'm not going to get where God wants to take me next on my own. I'm going to need God, and I'm going to need a few spotters. And so are you. Because we don't want the weight of this world and this life to crush the things that matter to us. I don't want my family to be crushed under the weight of me trying to lift that alone. I don't want my character or my dreams to be crushed. And can I tell you, when the weight is on its way back down is a lousy time to look for a spotter. I got this. Help! Might not be anybody in the gym at that moment. That's a terrible time. And if you're like, well, thanks, that's where I am. If that's all you got, yell for help. But for the rest of us, decide in advance before you ever lay down on the bench, before you ever add the plates to the bar, before you ever try to lift a marriage or a dream or a career or a walk with Jesus, decide in advance, I'm going to put some people around me to be spotters. They're going to help me. You got to get something. Say, well, how do I get some spotters in my life? I have found the best way to attract spotters to my life is to be a spotter for someone else, because spotters are drawn to spotters. Spotters are drawn to people, okay, I'm here, and then when it's my turn, you'll be here, and they understand. We've got this relationship, which means I can't just be a taker, I need to be a giver. And if I'll live that way and I'll put people around me, I can handle the weight of life with God and some people around me. So do you have any spotters? If you're going into 10th grade this fall, if you're a young adult trying to figure out what your path looks like, If you're trying to navigate single life or married life or divorced life or widowed life, some of you are trying to navigate these small humans we produced are driving us crazy life. Do you have any spotters? Do you have some people who can fight the Amalekites with you? I had a conversation just this weekend with a parent with little kids. And they're like, just to be honest, right now, I am counting the days until they move out. And without any judgment, I was able to lean in and go, I remember that well. And can I just tell you, as someone a little bit further along, the day's gonna come when you're like counting the days till they come back to visit. Spotter. It's your weight to lift. I can't parent those kids for you. But I'm just gonna come and go, hey, just let me hold my experience out over your parenting and bless you. Do you have some spotters in your life? If you're in your 40s or 50s and wondering what comes next, your 60s or 70s or 80s and wondering, is there another hill for me to climb? Do you have some spotters around you who go, yes, there is. And they're cheering you on. And if you have those people, don't take them for granted. And if not, get some. Get in a group this summer. Get connected. If you are connected, stay connected this summer. Why have I been talking about that so much during this series? Because not long from now, quicker than you might think, your life will be a product of the God you believed in, the people you surrounded yourself with, and the battles you chose to fight. So get a God that you're connected with, and get a few people, a group that you're connected with, because an undaunted life is built on connected courage. Joshua doesn't fight alone. Moses doesn't climb alone. Joshua chooses a team. Moses has some friends to hold up his hands. And as a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Amalek in battle. And both Moses and Joshua had God on their side. And without that, they wouldn't have won. But because they also had some spotters, they overwhelmed the enemy. They didn't just survive, they thrived. They overwhelmed the Amalekites. Do you want to just make it in life? Or do you want to kick butt for Jesus? I don't think you can say that in church. It's because you know how many spotters have been telling you can say that in church. Man, I don't want to just make it. Anybody else? I don't want to get 40 years into marriage. Well, we survived barely. Hate each other, but here we are. No. I don't want to just eke out. Come on, somebody. I want to live an undaunted life. I don't want to just eke out a life. Wake up in the morning, kind of go do the same thing, go to bed at night. Life really doesn't have purpose. No, I want to overwhelm the spiritual forces coming against me so I can walk in the favor of God in my life. I'm not talking about everything going easy or smoothly for me. That's not a real life. A real life is when the battles come, they hurt, and then I get back up with the help of God and some people around me, and I get back to fighting in the way that God has called me to fight. And the way God has called me to fight is to give my life away for others. It's the way God has called you to fight. If you're a Christian, your life isn't about you. Your life is about Jesus and the people around you. And you need some spotters to remind you of that. When life starts to shrink down to the size of your current problem, a spotter will say, hey, we can get a few more reps. I'm here. We can get a few more reps. You can go further than you think you can. You can do more than you think you can. You can do all things through Christ who gives you strength, and I'm here to remind you of that. We need some spotters in our lives. So how do you know when you need to stand alone and when you need to ask for help? When the battle is worth fighting. If the battle's not worth fighting, then maybe you can do it on your own. But if it's worth fighting, you need help. And if you're going, well, I don't want to ask for help, it'll make me look weak, not to a spotter. Spotters know asking for help makes you look strong because you're about to set a new personal record. and you understand, I don't want to do that on my own. Let me ask you a question. Listen to me very closely. Is your future worth fighting for? I think it is. Is your family worth fighting for? I think it is. Is your calling worth fighting for? I think it is. Is your integrity worth fighting for? I think it is. Is your emotional and mental health worth fighting for? I think it is. Is your sobriety worth fighting for? I think it is. And if it's worth fighting for, don't try to do it on your own. Ask for help. So if you're brand new here, come back next weekend. Just make a decision for the next few weeks, man, I'm going to gather like this. I'm going to come to church. This is what we call it, coming to church. And we know this is just a building. We are the church. But there's something about gathering together like this that sends a signal. I'm part of a larger thing. And I want to encourage you to do that. If you've been coming for a little while, get in a group. Join a group. Do it today. And if you joined a group already, show up for it this week. Over the years I've learned, you can't just say sign up for a group. You got to say show up. And people are like, signed up for that group. Now, I never went. It really didn't make I was hoping for more impact. Show up. Show up. You say, well, I don't really need a group right now. Things are going pretty well. Yeah, your group needs you. And the best way to get spotters in your life is to be the kind of person who's a spotter for someone else. So if you don't need a group this summer, show up and be a support to someone else. If you're leading a group, don't do it alone. Ask someone to help you. Be your spotter. If you're not serving yet, get plugged in. Find a way to use your gifts to help people. People are worth fighting for. An undaunted life is built not on isolated arrogance, but on connected courage. And if you receive that today and you want God's help in that area of your life to practice connected courage, will you just shoot your hand up all over the room here in Newark and Hockessin, online. Hold that hand up high if you can, right where you are. Let me pray for us. Father, we honor you. We give you all the glory and the thanks for your goodness in our lives. God, you are an awesome God. We remind our souls today that we are well able to defeat the enemies that are coming against us. God, we remind ourselves of how faithful you've been in the past. God, we remind ourselves that if we were to open our eyes and look around right now, if we were able to see all the people gathered at our locations, God, we would see some people who've been through some stuff and you've been with them every step of the way. A community of faith strengthens us. And today, God, we are leaning in, committing ourselves, that we will not try to fight the battles that count alone. We're going to stay close to you. We're going to stay connected with a few others. And God, we pray for great victories in our lives for your glory. Come on, would you do that right now? Just hold out the staff of your past experiences with God. You've seen him. Even if you haven't known him for a long time, he brought you here. You're so thankful. Hold that out over your current situation. If you're a young adult right now and you're struggling with making sense of the world, feel the strength of the people of God, reminding you that God is faithful. It's connected courage. And while you let God speak to you for a moment more, if you're here today at any of our locations and you don't know God personally for yourself yet, if you have not yet put your faith solely and decisively in Jesus, made him leader and Lord of your life, God thinks you're worth fighting for. God thinks you're worth fighting for. So much so that he gave his only son. Jesus came, died on a cross, rose again so that you could have life with God. And if you want that today, if you want to put your faith in Jesus, I'm going to lead us in prayer. And if this is your first time taking that step, I want to encourage you just to whisper out a prayer of faith right where you are. You can use my words if it helps you, but pray with faith in your heart, something like this right now. Jesus, today I give my life to you. I believe that through you I have forgiveness of my sins. Everything that's kept me from you is covered by you right now. Jesus, from this moment on, I'm going to follow you. And if that's you, while everyone around you stays focused on God, if you would say, I want to be included in that prayer, I'm putting my faith in Jesus today, will you shoot your hand up? Just hold it up high, boldly. Yes. Putting my faith in Jesus. Yeah. Trust in him with my life. And Hocat said, hold that hand up high right now. Online, let us know. Type the word faith in the comments. And then everybody together, come on, let's give Jesus all the praise.